to a show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Match Podcast. And I'm glad you all are here. Love you. So, this week on the podcast, I'm having friend of the podcast, returning guest, Miss Paige, Miss BJJ Mama. Hello.
What up? What up? I'm glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. See, we had this long gap of not having you on the show, and now we're like, look, let's just cram in as many episodes as we can.
All the time. Talk about all the jiu-jitsu and all the life. I love it.
Absolutely. So for this episode, so Paige had approached me with this a while back and then just kind of reminded me recently, we're talking about blue belts and, why so many blue belts quit jiu-jitsu. So, we put the questions out there in the stories, got some answers back, and we have our own theories as well. So we're going to have that discussion here for you all because we're for the people. We are here for
the people.
So we're going to go ahead and open up. And both of us are blue belts. And I know I can say from my own experience, from what I've seen and what I've experienced at blue belt, why, that might be kind of a quit point for a lot of people is blue belt's tough. And when I say it's tough, I mean it's tough in that idea of like when you're a white belt, you would think, oh, it's a lot harder as a white belt, but you're an empty glass. So when you're an empty glass, you just can start putting your ingredients in, and it's fun, it's exciting, it's romantic, and you're like, yes, this is great, I love it, and everyone's so helpful, and it's like cool. Once you hit blue belt, everyone's still helpful, but they're a little bit more aggressive. There's this weird, I think some people put this weird expectation on themselves where they feel like, oh, well, I'm a blue belt, I have to know how to do this because I'm a blue belt, and I have to know how to do that because I'm a blue belt, and I can't even Granby properly. I'm a horrible blue belt. I see teenagers over here doing Granbys all the time. Oh yeah, because they're teenagers. Dante, you're 44. Relax. So I think that's a big part of it, at least what I see in that ideal. What about your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I have a couple of thoughts. I actually got a response this morning that I thought was a really good one, and I thought, I need to remember that. So there was one of my followers that mentioned it's not new and shiny at blue belt. It's not new information. It's perfecting information and getting better. So I feel like a lot of times, or the person that commented on this said that, it's not new and exciting anymore. You already know what an armbar is. You're just trying to learn how to get better at it and how to improve it. So it's not, this new, magical thing that someone has learned. But I think also, like you had mentioned, there's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves. And in a lot of sports, activities, academia, as you work up the ranks, you're naturally better than a lot of other people. You keep going up and up and up and up and up. However, we've talked about this before. I feel like in jiu-jitsu, you get to one rank and then you're kind of back at the bottom of that ladder again, so it's not a jiu-jitsu ladder of white, blue, purple, brown, black. It's like a whole ladder at white belt, a whole ladder at blue belt. So you're at the bottom again. And I think that that's really tough for people because we live in such a society, especially for, I feel like, jiu-jitsu in the United States. We live in such a society of I got ranked, so now I should be better than all these people, when really you have to learn more. You're at the bottom of the blue belt ladder, I feel like that's kind of the big thing. One of them, at least.
So one of the responses I got, it makes sense. I kind of I feel what they're saying, and they're basically saying, it's probably because of getting that promotion, and now you're back at the bottom. That confidence gets shook,
Hmm.
and
Oh
that's
yeah.
tough too. Um, I think when I got promoted to blue belt, I didn't feel, I kind of kept that mindset of like, a few of the guys were like, so what's it feel like, being a blue belt now? And I was like, I feel no different. I feel like I'm still a white belt because, you have to remember we're still learning. Just because you get bumped up, like I always say, blue belts are just, white belts that are a little more clever. That's
Yeah,
all
we
it
talked
is.
about this before. I feel like getting your blue belt, and I know people are going to hate on me for saying this, it's almost like you're still a white belt, but you know the basics, right?
Yeah.
Like you're still a new guy. You still have a lot to learn, but you can learn better because you kind of grasped like the basics and the techniques. Now the real work begins. At least that's how I feel. You know, when people are like, "Oh, wait, now I got to put more work in," I'm out.
No, I agree. And for some people that's tough because I remember a teammate. He had been training maybe 6 months, maybe. Yeah, because he mentioned that specifically 6 months. At this point, I've been training for maybe 2 years, and we're all kind of sitting around, and he had made a comment and said, "Man, I better get my blue belt soon, man. I've been doing this for 6 months, and you know, I think I'm ready." And I whipped my head over quick. I was like, "Excuse the fuck out of me!" And
Who are you?
and the thing is, it's like, that's where that ideal becomes kind of toxic because it's like, well, I've been doing this for however long, I should get bumped up now. And then when you do, because blue belt is tough, jiu-jitsu is tough, period. But blue belt, it's tough because once you're there, it's like, all right, now start putting it together. So for an individual to say after 6 months, I better get bumped up. I've been here for 6 months, what's up? You get the blue belt. Well, I got some news for you. It's not likely that blue belt promotion is coming as quickly, or purple belt is coming as quickly as that blue belt it would have come. I mean, there's some people that are prodigies and they get out there and they work hard, they hustle, and they get the blue belt literally in 6 months. You know, and kudos to them. And they're going and they move the purple, relatively quickly. But for us common folk, you know, we get that promotion to blue belt, and then yeah, we're back at the bottom of the ladder,
Yeah.
and it's
And
learn new skills again.
I feel like too, when you're a white belt, if someone tops you or you get submitted, it's very easy to say like, "Oh, I'm a white belt, like I'm still learning, whatever." So I think that there's a lot of I don't want to say stigma. I can't find the right word, but there's like a lot of feelings or being butthurt if someone is a blue belt and then they get tapped. So I feel like then they get really frustrated, like because they don't want to just say, "Oh, I'm a blue belt, so I'm still learning," because they put all this undue pressure, this unnecessary, of like, "Oh, I can't tap or I can't get submitted." And I also feel like that's why a lot of people, even if they don't intentionally quit because of injuries, still because they have that mentality of like, "Oh, I just got promoted to blue, like I can't tap, I can't be submitted by white belts or purple belts," like. So I feel like people go into blue belt not realizing what it is, and then they're either they get hurt or they get frustrated, and then they just quit and they don't come back because it takes a lot of work and a lot of, I think, mental work, honestly.
Mhm. I I can say as far as the not tapping thing, look, man, I was that way as a white belt, so you ain't gonna you cannot make me change my ways. No, I tap because number one, it's not about losing battle there. You're learning, your teammates learning. If they get submission, be a good teammate and tap to it. Don't risk injury. But I think it is a thing of ego too, because it's like, all right, I'm blue belt now. For some people, the ego becomes super, strong, and it's
Toxic. I
like,
think it's toxic.
yeah,
Oh, I can't tap, or oh, I threw my arm out because I got caught in an armbar. You didn't get caught in it. You chose not to tap. Someone got
Yeah,
it on you, and you chose not to live to fight another day. And now you're off the mat for 6 months. That's on you, not on jujitsu. That's on the person. And I think you're right. That's definitely where egos come in.
yeah, for sure. And I think the ego is. I think when you get to blue belt, if you haven't already kind of conquered it at white belt, I think blue belt, one of the things you're learning is to manage your ego. That's one of those skills. I think that might be the hardest skill to obtain as a blue belt is to conquer your ego. I mean, some people can skip by it and get to, purple and brown belt and still have the ego there. But again, they put in that they hustle, and it's
Right.
like I'm going to get through it, ego or not. But ultimately, at blue belt, I think that's where it really, hits us, low.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of people are really, really concerned with other people's journey. So, like you said, the guy that felt like, oh, I better get a blue belt soon. Like everyone has a different journey. They have a different goal in jujitsu. This is not like being a part of a soccer team where you're all on the same page. We all have the same goal. So I feel like sometimes it is very hard. I think it takes a special person to come in and say, okay, I'm going to start this new sport. As I go up the rank, I'm going to learn at every level, whether it be my mental fortitude or things I can do technique wise. I think that it's very hard. And that's why, as you go higher up in rank, people don't know that. They come in for free trial class, first day, whatever, and they don't realize, how much effort and how much mental growth go into the jujitsu journey. I know that sounds so cheesy, but, they don't realize it's not just you train, you get a belt, and then that's it. Like there's so much more to it.
I want to believe, and this could just be because I'm in the community now, but I want to believe that things are getting better, from the outside viewpoint, where you know early on people would think, oh well, like taekwondo, for instance, my kid's been doing taekwondo for 2 years and he's a black belt. I want to believe that
Yeah, they
that
don't understand.
stigma, um, that it's no longer, or at least is getting better with people who look at it from the outside to understand, like, oh well, it takes a long time to get to black belt. For the average, grappler, going in there versus, and that's not to throw rocks at taekwondo or anything.
No, but it's a
Um,
totally different art. I mean, there's a
yeah,
different system for scoring basketball, a different system for soccer and swimming. So I think that people just lump martial arts in together. And I do think that that is part of, like we were talking about, white belts or blue belts or people that come in. Maybe even they have that mentality of like, well, dang, my friend's over here doing taekwondo or my friend's doing Krav Maga and they've got blah, blah, blah rank. Okay, cool. It's a different art, and different schools do different things. So you know what? Maybe your buddy that's training down the road that got his blue belt might be at a school that gives rank because they show up every single day and they're not competing and they're at a different like mentality versus maybe a school that puts a lot of emphasis on competing or a school that really doesn't care how often you show up, but if you know the technique and you're really trying hard. So I think that one of the components of why people quit at blue is that they're just so wrapped up in what they think it should be, and then they get frustrated because they're like, ugh, I'm not making rank, or oh, I feel like I shouldn't be getting tapped.
it, I think for myself, because I'm coming up on, I don't, when did I get it? 2019, I think, maybe. January 2019. I believe I got promoted to blue belt. And, I got that promotion full steam ahead. I was out there. I was like, let's go. Let's do it. And I felt it. I was like, I was charged into purple. It's like, I want this. And that first year, I had, really good consistency going and just I lived at the gym basically. I was there. You couldn't get rid of me. It got to a point where my wife had to tell me, it was like, hey, maybe you should, I don't know, come home sometimes.
Take a
You're at the
rest
gym
day.
like 6 days a week. You should probably, come see your kid. I don't think she knows you're her dad. Should just be some guy. Like, who's this guy reading bedtime stories to me? You so yeah, for myself, I was in it, and I don't want to say like COVID. COVID
Oh,
hit.
that's a huge component for, especially for any person that's been a blue belt in the last couple of years. Absolutely.
Like when COVID hit, it stunted my schedule. It stunted everyone's schedule, not just mine. But like, upon returning, it was like, I fell into that comfort of, okay, I'm not training. Meanwhile, there are a lot of people that were secretly training. I
Ugh.
just I didn't want to take the risk. I trained with one teammate because I knew he wasn't seeing other people. He and I were both very much like shut-ins. So, we had access to the gym. We were the only ones going over there. We were training, he and I, and he's now a blue belt himself now. But he was coming from Muay Thai, and he was like, "Look, I want to really get more into jiu-jitsu." So he and I would go over there and train a couple times a week. And once we reopened, we had all these conditions that just to be safe. And yeah, I don't know, things just felt weird to me, and then I started going less and less. Life started going in different directions here at home for me, and I think I can speak for myself with it in terms of at least not quitting, but stunting your progress. It's just life. So,
I'm good.
oh,
I
go ahead.
feel like I see that, but also I feel like, why do we have to say that it stunts our jujitsu? It's just you're continuing to stick with jujitsu while life is happening around you. And I think too many people have life happen around them, and then they feel like they have to quit because I don't have the time to do this. Instead of changing your goals. That was one of the other things too that a couple of people had kind of commented on. Some higher ranks that weighed in on the question I asked. People don't realize you have to reset your goals. If your only goal is to get the blue belt, then what do you do when you get it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is a thing though too for a lot of people. The goal is for them just to get blue belt. There is no other thought to it. It's like I got blue belt. Well, now what? And it's like, well, you keep training, and that's where it also becomes this thing of like not making it about the belt, but making it about your journey.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you were talking about COVID. So I actually, and I know we've talked about this before, I got my blue belt February 2020. That was when the shutdowns happened. Like, we flew to Chicago, did some stuff with family, and then went over to Wisconsin at Professor Solis's school. And I actually got my blue belt from Carlson Gracie Jr., right? So I was so excited to come home and, like you said, charged, ready. I mean, within 2 weeks of coming home, they're like, shut down. You can't train at all.
Like, I'm wondering too, as we both mentioned we got our blue belt and it's like charged, full steam ahead. I wonder if that's a part of it too, though, is you just charge out the gate, ready to go, and some people burn out sooner
Yeah.
than
Or they
others.
don't reevaluate, like we said, like make a new goal. Cool, you got your blue belt. Before we get back on the mat as a blue, let's make some new goals. I think that's a
Yeah,
huge one.
like I always feel like as I'm kind of going through my learning process of it now, it's like, okay, well, instead of me being the guy in the gym 6 days a week, now I'm there maybe one, possibly 2 days a week now. It's like, whereas before I was there, 6 days, taking the bumps and bruises. I think that factors in too. Older age, at least, is like not training in an intelligent way, which that was definitely me.
I'm laughing because that was me. If my husband could hear you right now, I was, oh, blue belt. I won a bunch of stuff at White, so now I'm going to go in blue belt. I'm going to only do these big tournaments and win. And he was like, you cannot show up and only do tournaments that you know you're going to win at, Or I started weightlifting and I ended up getting so into weightlifting, which I originally started to help with jujitsu, but then I was like very, I'm an all or nothing person. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to weightlift. So now I need to be able to deadlift 300 pounds because that's going to help my jujitsu. No, dude, now you're too sore to do jujitsu. So like I had to find a balance. And when I say I had to find it, I'm still finding it right now. Like I'm literally just coming back from having a back injury. That was when we were going to record before and I had hurt my back.
Yes.
But I had to sit back and luckily I am married to a brown belt who's also my coach. So like I can't act like my journey is the same as everyone's until you just need to show up. I obviously understand that. But we had to really sit back and he totally called me out. He was like, well, do you want to lift weights or do you want to be good at jujitsu? Like you gotta figure out like a happy medium of we do a little jujitsu, we weight train, we pick a tournament every couple of months. Like you can't just go into this like guns blazing, like I'm gonna submit everybody and lift all the weight and win all the tournaments. And I feel like that's kind of the difference in the mentality shift from white to blue, because it is very easy, as we all know, as a white belt to be guns blazing. That's kind of the MO, right? Like I'm gonna come in and just submit everyone and grab people when we do the things. And it's a different experience than you're a blue belt, you know?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, again, it goes back to the ideal of, blue belts are really just white belts that, have the fundamentals down, or at least have a grasp and understanding of what the fundamentals are, because we're still spazzy in the beginning. We're still, muscling sometimes, we're still, doing dumb things. And, you'll get, and again, this isn't for all blue belts, obviously, we're generalizing, and when I generalize, I'm using myself more so than anything because
Oh,
I
dude, I make
know.
mistakes all the time. We had a friend, Will, who's a black belt that came to roll with us, and I like realized I was getting frustrated about not being able to get stuff, and I finally had to say, like, dude, he's a black. What are you doing? Like, just tap and then keep going. Like, reset. Like, take advantage of learning from this person. Don't hold on to a stupid armbar that you're never gonna get, and then go home mad and quit jujitsu. Like, it's cool. Let's keep going. You know?
Like, I remember not too long ago, my old coach, he'd shoot me a text at 2 in the morning. Hey, you want to train in the morning? Huh? Yeah.
It is
Okay.
morning. What?
He was like, okay, see you at 10, see you at 9, go over there and train. And, business as usual, we're rolling. And, he'll get me in, just butterfly sweep after butterfly sweep, you know, and in my mind, I have to remember, like, this dude has been doing this for 25 years. Like, he knows everything you're going to do before you do it. He will convince you that this is your ideal
He'll
to
lock you.
get
He'll lock you
choked.
in there. Come on, go ahead. Here's my back.
He'll offer it up to you, like, here, go right ahead, like, jump into my guard. Oh, sure, why
And we
not?
do, right? We do it, don't we? We're like, okay, let's go.
And those are just the things that, again, at blue belt, those things happen, especially when you're rolling with a higher belt. And we get frustrated because a lot of us have this ideal, like, I'm blue belt, I should be smarter than this or better than this. Is like, no, you're still learning. You're getting smarter by falling for those mistakes, because now, hey, don't put your hand in the mousetrap. you know go around it, figure out another way to it, and that's part of the process. And the sooner that we figure those things out, the better we become in the long term. So
No, I was just gonna say, I think too. We talked about injury. I was introduced to some other blue belts and females and different people and stuff, and it was a little funny though because some of the conversation was about when people got blue belts and then how they got hurt or they were off the mat now or they injured this or they injured that, because I think that people immediately get that blue belt and again, like we said, they don't make new goals and they still go in thinking, well, last week I submitted all these people or I did this, and then they think that they're going to continue doing that However, their training partners, their coaches, are challenging them more. They're faced with new puzzles that they have to figure out, so it's not the same. So you can't treat it the same. And I think that that's why people get hurt or they get injured. And then some people, and it's not to say that it's a terrible thing if someone looks at what's happening in their life and says, I got my blue belt, that's my goal, whatever, life is crazy, I'll come back at some point. That's totally fine. I really feel like as a community, we have such a habit of immediately saying, oh, well, someone got their blue belt, we're never going to see them again. And, I know it's a funny joke, whatever, we all do it. But, like, what if we didn't? What if we just encouraged people, oh, congrats, you got your blue belt. Like, what's your new goal?
Yeah.
So then people start realizing it's not just get your blue belt and you're going to be some sponsored athlete that's like, blowing up on Instagram.
Well, I think too. I think about the injury part again. As a white belt, I remember separating my ribs, and
Oh,
it was brutal. Like, I don't know. I'd never felt pain like it before.
ugh.
And as a white belt, I knew, heal up, get back on the mats as soon as possible. But my mindset with injuries as a white belt versus as a blue belt, it was, let it heal up, but I can't wait to get back to the mat. I need to get back to the mat because I knew there was an achievable goal. It was very close. It was within my grasp. I need to get back anytime missed. There's this idea that, oh no, I've fallen down the ladder a little bit,
Or you
which
go
is,
harder, right? When you come back from it.
yeah.
We all do that. Oh, God, I've been off for 6 weeks, so now I need to go super
Mhm.
hard. Well, we're hurt again.
Whereas at blue belt, I get injured and it's like, let's go ahead and let this really heal up. Now, granted, the difference there too is age. Again,
Right, us old folks.
like I'm at 44. If I feel anything that doesn't feel right, I'm like, looks like we're sitting out. We're watching today. Like,
No, sir.
and I will say, I do still have like a small part of the ego in there where I see a young guy on the mat. I see a young white belt, and he's going through people. And I'm like, I want a piece of him until he dumps me on my head. And I'm like, oh
I'm
fuck,
out. I'm out.
I didn't I didn't want that smoke, or as Sophie would say, I didn't want that spice.
Oh my God, that's so cute. I don't want that spice. But I think too, that is another factor as to why people might quit because they're going so hard. You can't sustain that. I don't care if you're 20 and you want to get a black belt one day. You can't keep training like that forever. Again, unless you are someone that does this for a living, it's a special circumstance. All you do is train, you have a recovery plan, all that stuff. Okay, yes, that very small percent can do that. But for the average jujitsu practitioner, it's not realistic that you can sustain that sort of training. So I feel like people don't understand everything that they were doing at white belt worked because they were a white belt. Now
Yes.
you're a blue belt, you have to reevaluate, you have to look at the long term picture, as to how you're going to train. So it was so funny. My husband and I were talking, I'm in school, so I'm trying to juggle like mom life, doing classes, doing projects on the side for a business I'm starting. And then we also have our own studio. Like I can't train the same as I did when I was 20 something, had zero responsibility and, wanted to just be on the mat all the time and do a tournament every single month. So it was funny. He said, if you want to just do jujitsu all the time and like, you don't have to do the school if you don't want to. And I was like, dude, I would rather train as often as I can right now and still make sure that life and my responsibilities are taken care of, but continue being on the mat long term. And I feel like that's kind of the difference in mentality. And you know what? Maybe it's not even a blue belt thing. It's just a person thing. Like people walk into jujitsu not realizing what the long-term goal is. Like this is a long game sport. This is not a quick, a quick sport. You're going to pop in here and there, do soccer league on the weekends type of sport. So I feel like that's a little bit the mentality shift maybe that I think people are not realizing is part of the journey.
So I encountered a gentleman at a party years ago. I think I hadn't, I wasn't a blue belt yet, but I've been training for quite a while by this point. And my friend had introduced me to the guy. She goes, "Oh, this is Dante. He does jujitsu." And the guy goes, "Oh yeah, yeah. I wanted to talk to you about that." Yeah, he was a fit guy, and he loved working out. And he was like, "Yeah, I wanted to pick up jujitsu. It's kind of a supplement in there, and do it like maybe once every 3 weeks to kind of part of my workout to kind of just give myself a different thing." And I was like, "Well, I mean, you could do that, but I told him like at least from my experience, what happens is." You go in there, you get this feel on the mat where you get the thirst for knowledge, number one. But number two, like if you're going once every 3 weeks, you're gonna get murked every time you go in
You're gonna
there.
get slaughtered, dude.
Yeah,
Once every couple of months to show up.
yeah, it's like, come on, dude. And it was like, I would advise to you if you're gonna do jujitsu, you're gonna have to give more than once every 3 weeks. This isn't just kind of a supplemental, you know, a fad.
Yeah,
This,
for sure.
so I don't think that he ever took up jujitsu. He eventually ended up marrying, the young lady that brought him to the party. Which good for them. I'm happy for them, newlyweds. But I don't see any hints of jujitsu in any of their profile pictures, or when I do my Facebook spying, I don't see jujitsu stuff in there. So I guess he
So,
understood.
and I think too, this is just a thought that I randomly had because I encountered this the other day. I need to share the clip. It's kind of funny. So I feel like too, when people get to blue belt, maybe they're afraid to ask questions, because they feel like, oh, I'm a blue belt. I can't ask coach or professor to stop and redo this because I'm going to look like a fool, right? So the other day we were training. Julia came, and we were training and did some drills. And my husband came, and we were working on something. And I can't remember. We got to some position, and he said, "Why aren't you just taking my back?" And I had so his arm, I had his arm locked in, and my leg was there, but for whatever reason, I was like, I just couldn't get my brain to compute, like, how do you want me to take your back? Because I'm just only thinking of like this one way that I know how to do it. I need to get my seatbelt grip, I need to get a hook in, I need to sit you up, chair, all these things. And it was so funny because he's a brown belt, and he was like, why don't you just, do da 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 da? And I looked at him and I was like, because I don't know how. Like, I don't, what do you want me to do? Now, luckily, I am married to my coach. So I can say those things. I can say that question and I can put it out there bluntly. But I'm pretty sure that if I was at another school and it was just, the professor or the coach, like I would probably be embarrassed, or I wouldn't want to ask that question, or I wouldn't want people to know that like I didn't know how to take the back from every single possible situation. Well, you're a blue belt. You shouldn't know how to do every single thing yet. And I think that that's where people get really discouraged. And it's funny, I'll have to share the clip because Julia actually caught the video where I'm halfway to his back and his arms up in the air and he's like waving his hand like, why aren't you just, doing this? And I'm like, but what do you mean? And then he goes, just take my back. And I finally say in the video, I'm like, I don't know how because I'm still learning. Like, I don't, what do you want me to do, dude? Just tell me.
So when I'm in class, I am that blue belt that will ask questions.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
I'll like, before, after the demonstration's done, coach will say, does anybody need to see it again? I'll raise my hand, even if I don't need to see it again, because I feel like there are other people who do need to see it again, but they don't want to raise their hands. So I'm like, look, I will take that bullet for you. And there are times where it's like, I, may know how to do it, but I do still kind of want to see it again just to make sure as a refresher, because it's like, again, I don't know it all. I barely know a little. So, just because I've done this move a million times doesn't mean like they're showing it, again, doesn't mean I can't pick up something new. So, okay,
Yeah.
can I say it one more time? And I think that's, something to be spoken, to as well, though, is the ideal that people may feel like, hey, I should know this as a blue belt. I'm embarrassed to ask. And then you go on for a long time doing things wrong or doing
Or you
things
get hurt.
incomplete.
Yes.
Yeah, and injuries. Um, but I think there's also something to the ideal that, as we did kind of say, some people get the blue and that's their goal. For some people, that just may be it, though,
Yeah.
is they come in just to get a basic fundamental of protecting themselves, or not everyone falls in love with jujitsu,
Yeah.
but I think that's something to just kind of sit there as a thought as well, because you'll have other people that like, we love jujitsu, we are married to this sport, and then we see people come in and then they leave, and it's like, oh man, it's a shame we lost them. It's like, well, we didn't lose them. Maybe this is what they wanted to do, and they had no interest in wanting to go beyond blue or purple, or whatever it may be. That I think that's a thing for some people. I think it's a small percentage, but you have some
Yeah.
people, whether it be security or law enforcement, even as well.
Yeah, I think too, though, I think that's definitely a valid point. I also think, though, for the person that comes in and just says, like, I want to get a black belt one day, but they don't set bite sized goals to reach that black belt, or they just set a very broad goal of, like, I want to get to blue in 1 year, I want to get, to purple 2 more years. Like, those are, not, in my opinion, those are not realistic goals, because you don't know what's going to happen in your life financially at the studio. Like, look, there was a global pandemic. I mean, you have to reevaluate, I feel like, is the thing I try to drive home. And I was guilty of it when we first started doing the podcast, like, oh, BJJ Mama, top 25 white belt, blah 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 tournaments. And I remember our Professor Solace, he said it so, oh my God, it was amazing. He was like, well, so do you really just want to be the best white belt? Or, like, do you want to be really good long-term at jujitsu? Like, do you have to reevaluate. So I couldn't go from white belt with the same exact goals as a white belt into being a blue belt, because that's not realistic. I can't be almost at the end of my white belt journey and say, oh, I'm top 25 ranked IBJJF master, like, athlete, so that's my new goal at blue belt. No, it took me a really long time to get to that goal as a white belt and reach it. So now I need to set new goals. So, and it's hard. It's especially hard if you're doing really good at one level to then feel like you need oh, now I got to go back down. So some of my goals at blue belt were, okay, I want to start picking up weight training so that I'm stronger. I want to do a few small tournaments before I go show up at IBJJF as a blue belt. You have to, like, change your goals. I couldn't go from white belt to blue and say, oh, cool, so now I want to be ranked top 25 masters blue belt when I just got a blue belt. Like, that's not realistic.
It's like, college sports, when like a 1AA college football team jumps to 1A, and they're like, all right, cool, Rutgers, coming in hot, we're about to become a top 25 team. It's like, meanwhile, Rutgers couldn't win a game that first season, or that first year as a 1A school, and it's like, oh shit,
Whole nother
maybe we
ball
got
game.
some work to do. um, and I like, the point that you made there about, bite-sized goals, because to say, hey, I want to come in here and be a black belt, and what does that take? Well, let's say I want to be a black belt in 14 years or 12
Dude,
years.
that's the average. Like, 10 is like you're living and breathing jujitsu. That's not like a
Yeah.
regular person that has a life and a family and a job.
Well, exactly. So it's like, I think BJ Penn got it in 3 years, and there was someone else that got it in four. And it's like, that's bananas, but it's also individuals who became obsessed with it, and was living and breathing jujitsu,
Yeah,
and
that's
for them, cool,
yeah.
awesome. But when you look at like the big picture of saying, look, I want to be a black belt, and I always hear people say, don't come in saying you want to be a black belt. I mean, I think when you look at it, when you step back from the outside, you say, well, what's the ultimate goal? Well, the ultimate goal is always black belt. Yes.
Yeah.
But when you come in, you want to say, yes, I want to be a black belt. You should be striving for that. If that's what your goal is, strive for it. But then that's where the bite-sized goals come into play, because it's like, well, first, as a white belt, stepping in, what do I want to learn first? What's my first goal? Well, I want to make sure that I'm shrimping properly. I want to make sure that I understand what close guard is. I want to make sure that I'm not trying to be the fastest person down the mat while shrimping. Those simple things. And then it's like, okay, now off to blue belt. you know and that's where I think the issue comes in. Is like, once we're at blue, it's like, okay, I want to get the purple belt. It's like, well, hey, remember what got you to the dance? Those
You just
bite-sized
got your
goals.
flu. Yeah. And I feel like that's so, I love that you mentioned, like not trying to be the fastest person down the mat. So my husband talks all the time about, okay, do we want to like crank out our bridge and shrimp and be down the mat really fast, but you're doing it wrong? Like, that's not going to help you when you're drilling. That's not going to help you in a tournament, so let's do it right. And so at our school, we do 4-week cycles. So the way he teaches is he'll basically introduce the technique, then we show the drill, then we drill the technique, and now we're gonna put it into our sparring or whatever. So we're not a school that's out here sparring every single night. Like, that's just not what we do, because again, we try to take those bite-sized goals. Well, like, let's show you what it is you need to do. Let's make sure you know how to do it. Now let's see if you can do it. And if you can't, then we're going to go back and reassess and tweak a few little things. It's not, I feel like jujitsu is not some like secret art that can only be taught one way. And I feel like that's the same thing for your journey. Like, it's not the same for everyone. And you need to stop looking at what other people are doing. I mean, look at Alex and Julia. Like, I love them and I totally look up to them, but their journey is totally different than mine. Alex, this is her job and her career, Alex Enriquez. Julia, it's basically like her job. She treats it like it's her job, but that's why she's doing good. And she has a whole different set of responsibilities and life goals and career goals than I do. For me, dude, I just want to stay alive, train, have fun, but still like not have broken limbs and not be able to take care of my kid. So my journey is going to be a little different than Julia's journey through, her ranks and stuff. But I enjoy that we can still roll and train together and flow roll and do all that stuff. Like, I love that. And I try not to get grumpy, but like, let's be honest, we all do it. Oh man, I didn't get a new submission today. And one of the things that my husband tries to remind me of is, okay, so whatever. So you didn't submit anyone, but did you not let them sweep you? Did you not end up in her triangle? Because let's be real, Julia's triangle, like, I don't want to be there. That's my goal in life, is like, do not get there. So, I think reminding ourselves of those things. So I feel like a lot of blue belts, like we said, they come in, all right, cool, it was open mat, we're going to roll hard, and then they go home and they're like, oh man, I got submitted or I hurt my arm or whatever. Okay, cool, but what did you do good? You had to have done something good. You're a blue belt, so obviously you improved on some things, but let's look at that.
I don't know that I've gotten a submission on. I gotten one submission probably all of this year, I think. And granted, I'm in class, once per week. And even when even when we're going live, I'm like, anyone that I tap hands with, I'm like, look, man, let's, just try to flow and like get a sense of what we're doing here. And I'm not that guy to say let's flow and then turn it up to 90%. No, if I say let's flow, I genuinely mean like let's flow.
Oh, I'm still working on that. I'm working on
it. I think, but that's the thing. It's kind of an elevated thing. It's like, if you and I are flowing and then I feel your intensity go up a little bit, and I was like, okay, well, you asked for this. Now I'm gonna go up, and then it just keeps escalating. So and I had to train myself to understand, like, look, if your intensity goes up, I'm gonna hold, I'm gonna hold where I am. If I said 40 and you go to 70, I'm staying at 40. And sometimes, my training partner will see, okay, they're not
Yeah.
pushing as hard. So let me dial it back.
We're not doing flying arm bars today, buddy. Calm down.
It's like, why are both feet off the ground? Why are you in the air right now? Like, you better chill, dude. I stayed after class a couple weeks back with one of the phase belts on his way to blue, and I'm looking around on the mat, and guys are kind of mingling. I was just looking, I was like, look, I'm back. I haven't been here in a while. I'm just trying to get a little, maybe some drills, maybe something. I don't care. I need to touch these mats. I need to absorb it. And the guy was like, hey, do you mind just doing like a flow with me? And I was like, absolutely, dude, let's go. And it was just that he was so good about it. And it's rare to see a white belt, doing that. So, and we talked about it afterwards. He was like, he's just trying to get a sense of where to transition, because that's tough for him, he
Yeah.
was saying.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that's what these flow rolls are for, is to understand your transitions, and to make sure, as you're going for a submission, you're not cranking it during the flow. You're like, okay, you got it. I tap, you let go.
Yeah, I
It's
feel like too people underestimate the power of flow rolling. My husband
Mhm.
all the time, he'll show me videos of drills, high level athletes doing drills, and he always points out, like, do you see the speed? Like,
Yeah.
can you see the speed page? Because I don't know if you remember when we first started talking, there's this joke in our gym that I had some page rage, and I
Yeah.
would roll with people, and I was the one, it was totally me. I would be like, I got a tournament coming up, I need to like take some names, like it's going down, so I had to learn, and Julia and I too, I love rolling with her because she is so strong and she is got some really great technique. And we've only, honestly, 100% being honest, my husband would die if he heard me admit this and say it out loud. So hopefully he doesn't hear me. We only just now got to where we can, I say, comfortably flow and hold each other accountable. So like we'll be going through a flow and one of us will turn it up, and then I'll kind of like, let's say I happen to get mount, and I'll be like, this doesn't feel very flowy. So then we'll both take a breath and then we'll keep going. But, that's kind of a learned, something you have to learn and we had to work through because, when we first started training, I was like, oh, okay, well, I need to show out because this is another girl and she's a blue belt now and I'm a blue belt and she's doing all these big tournaments. And, I had to realize, number one, her jujitsu is totally different than mine. Her goals are different than mine. But I need to take this opportunity to train and practice and grow. If I just come in here determined to submit all the time, I'm going to get hurt because she's training all the time. She has a totally different jujitsu than I do. So why would I not come into it and say, hey, let's flow? And one thing that we like to do, I'm sure you've done this before, when we flow, we get to the submission, but we don't land it, and then you tap. So the person is acknowledging, like, yeah, you got that. I probably could have fought it at this speed, but I'm not going to. Let's keep going. Let's flow through it. And we'll even work out of the submission. So let's say she takes my back and she sets up a rear naked. Cool, I'm going to tap. But she'll stay there, and then I'll work out. So that's one of the things that we do. My husband really, Michael works with our students on that. Like it's not about just throwing submissions at a dartboard. Like let's work through some stuff.
Yeah, it should be calculated, not just
Yeah.
just trying to throw anything you can find. It's a puzzle. Uh,
Yeah.
I I think also, one thing that's a factor into blue belts and potentially quitting is the ideal of what kind of grappler are you, and is it, Are you here to compete? Are you here for self defense? Are you a hobbyist? You know, because the hobbyist, which I put myself in that category, you know, there's some murky area there at times because it's like, I have quite a few teammates. They compete, and they're like full steam ahead. And when I roll with them, there's a understanding like, look, you're not going to get the same roll out of me as you're going to get out of another competition blue belt. You're
Yeah.
gonna, you're going to get from me. I'm going to I'm working, but I'm also like, hey man, like I got this bad hip. Like I don't want it to become a worse hip. You know, it's and that's not an excuse for saying, well, I can't do something because of this hip. No, but it's like
Oh, but
I
you want to be
also,
doing jujitsu in 10 years if you get hurt.
yeah, like I have the understanding of like, I want to live the, fight another battle. So I'm not trying to go the fullest. And sometimes I think, you know, others have a different, like even hobbyists as myself, like I might see a competition blue belt and or even a competition white belt and roll with them with the idea like, look, I'm just kind of going at a slower pace, and they're like, boy, I got stuff to do. I'm prepping. It's like, oh shit, like we are definitely not the same. And I feel like there are times where, even in that category, it's not even about quitting as much as it's just taking the pace that's best for you. Even if that means you disappear for 2 months and you come back, it's like, all right, let me put 2 months on, 2 months off. So there are times where that could be viewed as, oh, they're quitting or they've quit. um I feel like if you are training in some capacity, you haven't fully quit until you've put the gi in the attic and put the belt away and you drive past the gym and you don't even look at it. I feel like that's that moment where you've officially quit. Like where you got friends that are still training, you don't talk to them. It's
Right.
like I've
That's when
moved
you
on
really
to whatever other sport. I'm doing roller skating now, or I'm doing CrossFit. I don't know, but and again, I'm not taking shots at roller skating and CrossFit. I'm just saying like that's the transition point. It's like, well, look, I'm going to go do this now instead of that. I feel
yeah.
like once you've gone somewhere else, it's like, okay, I guess they've quit. I mean, and I'm speaking off of experience of my own self, because it's like I'm at that point where it's like I pop in, I get my rolls in, and then there's other stuff going on, but it's like, hey y'all, I'm not done.
But I
I'm
think that's
just
okay as
just
long as
flowing.
you don't come in for those few flow rolls and then assume, oh, whoa, I'm
Yeah,
ready for a purple belt. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people will have those injuries or those times that they take away, and then they come back and they look at their length of time. We'll say, quote, time that they've been training. Well, no, that's not really how long you've been training. You had some things that came up. You didn't show up to some classes. So let's not get all grumpy because your expectations are not where they should be for your journey, for you assuming, oh,
yeah,
well, how come I don't have a purple belt? Well,
well, yeah,
it's what you
and
put in, and that's okay.
that's the thing too. It's like, yeah, understanding that. Look, if I only show up, you know, 3 times a month, there should be no expectation in your mind that, okay, I should get my purple belt probably in 3 months. No,
Right.
no.
Well,
What
yeah, and
kind of
I think
crap are you
that's the
smoking?
thing. I think that's the thing that happens sometimes. So people will get, white to blue, and then they're at blue, and then they're just, like you said earlier, they're totally focused on that next belt without paying attention to what they need to do, where they're at. Like, let's just learn the jujitsu.
And and even with that too, just going in there and training, you know, yeah, have your small goals personally, but you keep training, the belt will change colors eventually. You just got to,
Yeah,
keep training versus thinking, oh man, I've been doing this for so long. I mean, right now, at the point that I'm at, I'm coming up on another anniversary, and it's like, oh man, I'm still a blue belt. But I'm not holding that in my mind like, I'm still a blue belt, I may as well quit. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a blue
Right.
belt.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm still rocking.
Well, and I think that's the thing. A lot of people go from white to blue, and then they'll see their friends getting different rank. Well, those friends are training differently. Like I said, my husband has to remind me all the time. I'll get all butt hurt. Oh, I didn't do good or whatever. He's like, what? Julia is training all the time, and that's her journey, and mine's different, and that's totally fine. But I think that a lot of people put unnecessary pressure
Yes.
on, oh, I need to get this. But also, like we said, I think people a lot of times come into jujitsu not realizing it's definitely a long term sport, and that's okay. I think it's totally fine if they get to blue and then they decide that was their goal. But I think for people that come in, like you said, oh, I want to get a black belt one day. Okay, well, cool. How are we going to do that? So, what are your goals at white? And then when you get to blue, what are your goals going to be at blue? Because you can't have the same goals at every belt because every belt's different. There's different set of skills. Well, okay, I should correct myself. It's not like it's totally different jujitsu at every level. It's how you approach it at every level, right? So we're not coming in guns blazing anymore as a blue belt, okay? So then as a purple belt, we're here to work and get better on the things that we learned at white and blue. And then, you work your way up. I think too many people think that at every belt there's going to be some new magic lesson they're going to learn. Like you're not. It's still jujitsu. It's how we're doing it.
Yep. It's almost like, you get to, you go from white belt to blue belt and you think, okay, I'm going to learn these new tricks. And it's like,
Right,
once
new
you get to
tricks.
purple belt, there are more new tricks. And it's like, no, it's all the same tricks. It's just how you apply those tricks and how you understand those same old tricks. Um, it- you know, there's nothing, there are obviously different because jiu-jitsu has evolved so much and there's just so much new stuff you see. But ultimately, what you're taking in is that as a white belt, you're learning how to understand what you're doing. As a blue belt, you've got some understanding now. Now you're trying to understand how you learn. You know, once you get the purple belt, okay, I know how to attack, I know how to
I feel like
defend.
you put it
Now,
all together. Like each
yeah,
level, you're able, white belt, here's a plethora of techniques you can use. And then at blue belt, you start figuring out how to do each of those techniques and maybe kind of figuring out like what your flavor is, right? Like what type of jujitsu you like. Are you a triangle person? Are you a this person? But also, I feel like communication with our coaches is huge because that's one of the trends I've noticed. I've had some people, message me on Instagram and say like, "Oh, well, what do you think about this?" Or "What if I want to do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Ask your coach. You want to cross train somewhere? You want to do a tournament? You don't want to do a tournament? You want to learn how to barambola? You want to be someone that's really good at arm bars?" I think that there needs to be more communication in the community between training partners and coaches. And, I feel like as a community, we have a tendency to like poke fun at everyone, like, oh, you're a guard puller, or oh, you only do this. Who cares if someone's a guard puller and that's their thing? Whatever. That's not my game. But I think that's the cool thing about our sport. But I think a lot of people get hung up on not realizing that at blue belt, this is when you start playing around with stuff. So you're not gonna be good at everything. Like you gotta find your way, and decide what kind of athlete you want to be. For me, it's so funny. We talked about how the joke used to be page rage, right? So at white belt, that was my nickname. Like, oh, watch out when you roll with her, because like page rage. So now I'm completely the opposite end, and the joke now with Julia and I is I'm like sloth jujitsu. Like I'm here for that sloth jujitsu game. Like let me slowly roll through stuff. I'm gonna get a little collar. I'm gonna work to this. I'm gonna set it up. Oh, you got out. That's fine. I'm gonna crawl to mount. Like I feel like that is where I'm at now in my jujitsu. Like I am here for the sloth jujitsu. Let's just roll through and play around with stuff. That's not to say that I can't go hard and fast if I need to, or I've done a tournament at blue. Like I'm capable of those things, but I can't do those things every single day, or else I'm gonna get hurt.
yep. I'm in that same boat where it's like I've embraced what like we call it old man jiu-jitsu sometimes, where it's like I'm moving slowly to the position, but there's like a lot of control because
Yes.
in order to get to that position slowly, you've got to have full control elsewhere. You can't have a loose grip and then think I'm going to slowly get to the back. It's like, no, they're just
Yeah.
going to move.
Yeah.
You got to have that lapel, or if it's no-gi, you got to have a good like grip on like, the trap or something, or, the tricep. But control is the name of the game at that point, and I love it because I don't have to move fast. Look, man, I get tired fast, man. I'm old. I had COVID. I'm throwing all the excuses now. Like I got a bad hip. Sometimes I don't sleep well. I can't be moving fast. Like, I am a sloth for sure.
I love it. So it's so funny because Julia, her nickname at her gym is Badger. So that's like her
Yeah.
thing, Badger Jiu Jitsu, whatever. So I can't even remember how it came up, but I had made the joke one day and I was like, look, I'm just trying to slog my way through this today. But then it kind of stuck and I'm totally here for it. It's fine. I love her. She got me a little magnet that says, what's it say? It says, don't hurry, be happy. And it has a little sloth on it. And the little sloth is like holding onto the tree limb. And I feel like that's totally me. Like, I'm just going to hold on until I see an opportunity and I work to something else, right? Like, a sloth is really strong, right? Like, let's not underestimate them. They're these strong animals that climb up these trees and hold on, right? Also, fun fact, sloths can swim. That's your fun fact. We watched the whole
Yep.
documentary on it. They swim, and it's hilarious with their claws, and they just slow pace, whatever. But yeah, I feel
Imagine
like,
imagine a giant sloth swimming. It's like,
right?
oh, that's gonna be terrifying.
I gotta find a video. It's hilarious because they have those long claws, so they're like swimming through the water. And apparently, in the documentary, they only swim to mate. So like, there's this mating call, so they somehow know where like the other sloth is, and the male will like take this very long journey to swim in sloth mode to get to his end goal, right? So that's my jujitsu. It may take me a while. I will get there and it will be fine. And I will live to sloth another day.
I like that. Don't hurry, be happy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start saying it to my daughter because she's always running through the house. It's like, baby, why are you running?
Just slow down.
Like you ran from the dining room to the kitchen, and it's only 3 steps. Like,
Right? Oh,
what's with the full sprint? But let her get that energy out. Let her embrace her athleticism. Um, so I did get a reply on off the mats from Tyler, who's a
okay.
purple belt. Um, and, I'm trying to like embody what he's saying here. I was trying to like kind of summarize it. I was like, I'm just gonna read out what he said.
Yes, read it.
So, it's a bit of a doozy, but I'm gonna, try to get it all out there. So Tyler said that with blue belts quitting, why blue belts are quitting jiu-jitsu. He says, I think the journey becomes intimidating. And what I mean is, as a white belt, you have a clear end goal and visions of getting your blue belt. It could take a year, it could take 2 years, and it could even take 3 years. Either way, it's a goal you see and you know you can achieve one day fairly soon. There isn't much pressure on you since you're a white belt and you're learning, and no one expects you to excel at a quick pace. But once you receive your blue belt, you realize, oh crap, now it's really just beginning. All this work and all this time at white belt, and here I am at square one again in a brand new starting line. And that journey to purple can seem so far away. That can be defeating to some. It can be intimidating to some, and that is why I think some people quit at blue belt. Not all, but some.
Yes, Tyler. Yes.
Yeah.
Right, Tyler?
And
Right? That's yes.
I
I
think
love
that
that.
sums up a
Oh my
lot
God.
of what we are saying early on is, again, you climb that ladder at white, and then you get the blue, and it's like, oh, now you're at the bottom of another ladder. And
Yes.
I've been, each time that I go back, I try to employ the ideal that as I come into each class, I'm looking to learn for this class as if I don't think of myself as a blue belt. I think of myself as a white belt who's been doing this for a very long time, and I'm just coming in to learn what you have to offer to me for this class. I take my notes, I go back, I look at videos, and then try to figure out for myself how can how can I mold this? Because when you're only going as little as infrequently as I'm going, you have to find other ways to absorb the material. Because for me, it's like, okay, I know I can get there comfortably on a Wednesday morning with no conflict. All the other classes is like, oh, you know I can get there, but I'm running late, or if I get there I gotta leave early. So it's like, just comfortably take in what I can on that Wednesday. And for myself, again, I don't look at it as any like, okay, I go in this Wednesday morning, I've got to learn this, I got to know this, because next week I'm one step closer to purple. I just look at it like, next week I'm a little smarter than I was last week.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
I like that. No, I think that that's absolutely, a great point that he made. I think that's definitely sums it up. And I think sometimes too, just pressure, man. We put that pressure, and I think too, when we get to blue belt, this is just what I have noticed in the community via people posting, sharing, commenting, chatting with me, just like in general. I think that some people get to blue belt and they assume that they have nothing more to learn from white belts, and they
Mhm.
act like, oh, that's so sweet. I'm gonna do stuff with blah 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 white belts, but I'm gonna be the one that gives them all my knowledge. And I think that that is, I don't think that that helps their journey.
No.
Now, some people, like you said, they are amazing athletes. They're incredible and they're just gifted, and that's fine. But I think that to get to blue and assume that you can't learn anything from a white belt and that you're the one that's going to drop all this knowledge on lower ranked people, I think is a little bit of a mistake, and I feel like, again, everyone's journey is different. Some people are amazing at whatever level that they get to, but I think that you still need to be open to learning things from all ranks. It doesn't matter. You have no idea what someone's background is. So especially with jujitsu nowadays, you could have someone that's a white belt and they could be a college wrestler, and you could learn a lot from them. It could be a judo brown belt. Well, you could learn a lot from them too. I think you can't just say, "Oh, well, now I'm at this belt, so any belt below me doesn't matter." And I feel like that's something that we need to embrace a little bit more. Oh, we can still learn from all these other people.
I agree 10,000%. And I know when I repost memes, I put up the memes like,
The
yo, that white
trash
belt's
white
talking,
belts.
tell him to shut up. you know. And I've had people get mad at me about it. For the most part, people laugh with it, but I've had a few people come at me, and it's like, dude, I'm not here to argue. It's the internet. Like, if
Right?
you don't like it, keep moving along. Otherwise, I'm not here for a debate. Like, and I have responded to some people and let them know, like, look, it's a meme, it's silly, and it's not universal to everyone. And I'm the individual that, if you're a white belt and we're rolling, you see something that I don't, and you explain it to me, you know, thank you. Like, because otherwise I would have never known. And you know, it's okay to listen to a lower rank, because, like I said, you might have a wrestler that comes in, you might have a judo brown belt,
Or someone that just sees it in a different way. I had a girlfriend that used to train with us. She had zero martial arts background, whatever, but she was a lawyer, right? So her brain totally worked differently than mine. So I need to see things. I need to try it. Like, I am not one type of learner. Like, I need to see you do it 3 times. I need you to demonstrate it on me so I can feel it. And then I need to attempt it. And chances are, when I get to the attempt phase of this, I may have still forgotten some of it and fumbled through it, right? I just have to do it. So she was the type of person, man, she could see it one time and then be like, oh yeah, Michael put his hand here, you got to do this. And I mean, there were times where she would just like explain something a little differently. And I mean, she was a white belt, and I think I was maybe still a white belt at this point, but I was competing and training a lot. She'd come maybe one or two classes, no desire to compete, was just doing it for fun. But her brain just worked differently, and I tried not to just discount. Oh well, you're whatever. You're a white belt that shows up 2 days a week. Like no, man, she saw it differently, and she was able to help me like walk through something or explain it a little differently. I feel like we need to find the love between the white and the blues, right? We need to like find the love and common ground. Don't discount each other or be grumpy with each other. I think that's also part of it. That like white to blue, there's such a friction of like, man, I'm a white belt, so I need to smash the blue belt so that I can get my blue belt. Or man, I'm a blue belt, I must smash all the white belts because I'm higher ranked now. Like, no, dude, it's just you're at a different level. Like, calm down.
Yeah. I mean,
Sit down.
you always hear. I think, I've heard this a few times. It's like blue belts. The way for blue belts to get better is to smash white belts, and it's like, I mean, I guess, but then what about the white belts?
Right?
How do they get better? By getting smashed by blue belts. And it's like, I don't think that sounds counterproductive.
But I think too, it's different mentalities at different schools. That's the other thing I think people
True.
don't realize. Like, man, every school is different. This is not a universal like. We talked about soccer and basketball and swimming. Like, there are universal rules. There's a universal way to play the game. It's not some magic thing. Not that jujitsu is magic, but there are completely different styles.
Um, I know there was one gym that I trained at, and they're nice guys, very nice guys. I just don't think that that was the gym for me. And from the untrained eye, and this was me like many many years ago, just walking in. I looked. I was like, "There's a bunch of meatheads. These guys are just, like these guys want to be the next UFC world champ. That's all this is." Uh, and when I spoke to my friend who had continued to train there for a little while after I did my trial with them, it somewhat kind of confirmed that for me. Where it's like it's just kind of like everybody beat the shit out of each other, and you show up, you get your belt based off of attendance. If you're showing up, to class for 2 years, you'll get ranked up. And I was kind of like, yeah, well, that's kudos for them because that's how you do. That's how you do. But I don't really, for me, I don't that's not something I feel like I would learn from. You'll learn something, but I don't feel like it's something that I would learn long term. Like if I trained at that gym and then went and trained where I am now with the characters at my gym currently, they would just fucking roll circles around me, and it's just like, oh my god, like this is a different level. And even with our gym having transitioned and merged, because we
Oh, yeah, that's
we
right.
we were a previous coach, he sold the gym, and his style of jiu-jitsu, uh, it works for me, it works for a lot of us, but it was a very, there's technique to it, there was a gentleness to it, but there was also kind of a bit of brute to it as well. And you can come to crazy 88 and try to be a brute, but you're going to get out finessed. And you might think, you might go in there the first time, boom, yeah, I got you. It's only going to work so many times before these
Okay.
cats,
Yeah.
like, all right, cool, that's what you got for me. All right, well, I have something for that. Because that was my thing. Once we kind of transitioned, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to use my brute style, and some of it still works as far as like passing the guard and everything. But it's like I have to understand too. It's like for what I've learned in the past and what's worked for me, I still need to grow from that. I can't just hold on to like, well, I learned it this way. I can't learn any other way. No, it's like I learned it this way, and that's just one tool in the toolbox. Let's add some more tools, and that's part of the learning process.
Yeah, and I think too, like we were talking about goals and setting, bite-sized goals. So we talked about wanting to be a black belt one day. I think too, this is just for me personally, deciding ahead of time what type of black belt you want to be is a big deal too. So there are some people that are experts at triangles, or they're fantastic at arm bars, or there's people that are just really good at all the things, and they're capable of defending and whatever. So for me, for my BJJ Mama Jiu-Jitsu and my journey, I really, really feel passionate about wanting to expose myself to as much jiu-jitsu as possible. Even if I don't like it when I'm seeing it and it's uncomfortable for my body to try it, I want to try it. I want to be aware of what it is, and I want to have some idea of how to defend it. Now, I think that going that route is obviously going to take me a lot longer to get to where I want to be, because I'm not just only doing arm bars or only doing back takes. I want to be someone that is a well-rounded black belt one day. I don't want to be someone that's just has what is it that my husband says sometimes, like, you don't want to have like a black belt level arm bar and that's all you got. You want to be someone that is aware of more. And also for us, I obviously have a different goal than like someone that's a hobbyist or competing a lot. We own a studio, so obviously being a good instructor is important for me. So I have to slow down sometimes, and okay, how can I learn this for myself, but also how can I help someone else learn this down the road, So I think that, again, that's where we have to acknowledge that everyone has a different journey, right? So if I'm trying to expose myself to way more, I'm trying to soak up stuff that Alex does with me, things I work with Julia, advice my husband has when Professor Solis comes into town, things that he does, going to seminars. Everyone's jiu-jitsu is different. And I think that that's part of what we need to look at when we get to blue belt. Like, oh, okay, cool. So I made it to blue belt. Now, what type of jiu-jitsu practitioner do I want to be? Not, I got a blue belt, now I want a purple belt. Okay, what kind of purple belt do you want to be? What kind of blue belt do you want to be? Like, I feel like white belt, and I could be wrong in saying this, I feel like white belt is the only level that you can come in and say, I want to get a blue belt. Okay, cool, show up, do, work your way through it, maybe get smashed a little, learn some technique, and yes, you're going to get your blue belt. But after that, you have to have goals and a plan, You're not just going to show up every day and get a purple belt. I mean, maybe at some places, but the majority of places, that's not how it works.
So I wonder, because my one buddy, he no longer trains. He was very close to blue belt, so he beat the blue belt blues. He didn't quit at blue belt. He just didn't get there.
That happens too.
Yeah, it happens, But I wonder if at that gym, with the ideal of like, he was like, look, you show up, you will eventually get the blue belt just off attendance. I wonder if that's the way it works going to purple. I want to believe it isn't. I want to believe by that point you got to start stringing together some skill. But I don't know. But what the fuck do I know anyway? I'm just a blue belt.
Right, I'm just a blue belt too. I know nothing.
I'm a blue belt with a podcast that just talks too much, and I'm just trying to learn. That's all.
I love it.
All right, so I think a good conversation there. Hopefully, the listeners could pull something out of there where they can say, we just gave the definitive reason why blue belts quit. So send this to universities, send this to the Gracies, let them understand we did the homework for everyone. I want you guys to understand that we are doing this for the people. We love y'all. Like, we're helping you. Paige, thank you for doing this. It's always fun having these conversations with you. So I appreciate it. And, let's set up another one. Let's talk some more. Shout outs, mentions, what you got for me?
Flex Pro Meals, obviously, been with them forever. Meals delivered to your door, ready in 2 minutes. They're credit to a lot of my success between training, life, and all that. So Flex Pro Meals, discount code BJJMama20. And then honestly, just follow me. Like, check out my journey. I'm all about keeping it real on the gram. Yes, that sounds cringy for our last podcast, but yeah, just follow me. Ask me questions. I love sharing with people about my journey, especially as a mom, an adult, a studio owner. Like, I just love having conversations with people about jujitsu. So hit me up. Handle is at BJJMama, spelled MONNA.
Right, absolutely. And I can say the Flex Pro meals, fast delivery too. So
Yeah, they're quick, man.
they caught me off guard once. I was like, all right, I should see the food sometime next week. And it
Tomorrow.
showed up on Thursday. I was like, whoa, son, relax. I wasn't ready. I didn't have room in
I
the
wasn't ready to get
freezer.
started. Hold up.
Like, I need to make room now. Hold on, I gotta go eat all these mozzarella sticks. Um, so yeah, I'll put the information in the show notes as usual. And as always, to the listeners, thank you for all the support. Thank you just for listening. Doing the podcast, it was just one of those things. We just threw it out there and said, fuck it, let's see what happens. If I had 3 listeners, you know, there's 3 people listening. But a lot of these episodes, we get a lot of good turnouts. Paige, especially yourself. It's like whenever I, have guests on and people, tune into it, it means something to me, for facilitating it. It boosts my ego. All right.
All about
There
that
you
ego,
go.
right, Mr. Blue Belt?
Absolutely. And look, I might be older and I might be a little wiser, but I still got an ego. So y'all keep listening because if y'all don't, my ego is going to be bruised. I want to throw a big shout out to my guest here today, BJJ Mama. Go give her a follow. The information will be in the show notes. It'll also be on the Instagram links as well. Also, want to give a big shout out to the fellas over there at Nerd Rage Radio, Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil. All you fellas. Thank you. I've been doing quite a few episodes over there with Nerd Rage Radio recently, whether it be on their podcast or on So You Like Horror, my other podcast. And even here, Phil was just recently on doing the She-Hulk episode with me. So, thank you guys. I love you. And last shout out, go check out my other podcast, So You Like Horror. It's picking up some steam over there, which means I'm probably doing a little bit better research on my movies instead of just saying, so you want to talk about scary movies? Yeah, let's go. Now I'm actually taking notes and being appreciative of the genre. I just recently recorded an episode on the space horror Event Horizon with fellow Instagrammer Manuel. So go check that out. Otherwise, as always, I love you guys. Thank you so much. You keep listening. We're going to keep making these shows. Thanks, guys. Ciao.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.